everyone. I'm Pamela Alexander, the executive producer of BizLynks TV Network, and we are so excited to bring to you a new show that's going to be airing on BizLynks TV Network called disAbilityLifeTV, and is going to be hosted by the wonderful Miss Yvette Pegues. Welcome, Yvette.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, everyone. This show is just a little bit different flavor than the usual. That's why I'm on set, because we want to really just kind of let you know what the show is all about and give you a little insight into your host, Yvette. Now, I'm going to tell you, we've been, I won't say stalking her, but we have definitely been following her around, and hopefully you have been doing the same. If not, definitely please start doing that and checking her out as she's going about the social media and traveling so that you can learn a lot more about her. But she has a vast background. She is Miss Wheelchair USA. She is an author. She is a mother. She is an advocate, and just an all-around exciting person to know, and just an inspiration to so many people. So we're so excited to be bringing Disability Life TV to you. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you the wonderful host. And Yvette, I want to just kind of start at the beginning. Tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, BizLynks TV Network, for having me on your show. I've been equally as excited. I'm very excited about what you do here on the network, and I'm excited to be working with the entire brand. But Yvette Pegues was not always a brand. She was just a little brat. She was a boy to most people, because I had a brother and I was a daddy's girl. So I spent a lot of time under the car, changing the oil, spark plugs, you name it, playing football, very physically active. So I was born and raised in South Florida, tropics, so I could play sports the year round. So what happened was I started going to school. And the reason why that's important is because I'd always been at a private school, and this was my first time going to like a public school. And what happened this year of public school, which was about 5th grade, was that my parents separated. And being a daddy's girl, that affected me quite a bit. But there was another thing that I found out right around the same time, and that was that neither one of my parents could read or write. So, and my brother didn't like school very much. So I ended up being first generation high school and eventually first generation college. So the school that I went to in Miami is called Barry University, and not like the Barry here in Georgia, but it really did change my life in a way that pretty much touches who I am throughout my life thereafter. So I became a networking and systems engineer. Now, I know you know that because of your technology background, but IBM is pretty much the Apple of today.
Yeah, that's it.
And a networking and system engineer really makes two large machines talk across long distances. So if you would look at what we did then, it was basically creating cloud. So if you're familiar with the cloud, that's what a networking and system engineer's job is, and it's what we now call cloud and making that available. So I was really excited to graduate with an engineering degree and certified in Microsoft, and I got a call from IBM. And IBM contacted me and recruited me pretty heavily and moved me here to Atlanta, Georgia.
Wow, where we have been blessed. And so for all of you all out there, just to translate, she's really bright. She's really smart and dare to say a geek, but we love geeks. This is the time of geeks, right? So just very bright, accomplished a lot through your corporate career.
Yes.
And then now let's kind of bring it into current day and just kind of tell us what happened.
Absolutely. So I met my knight in shining armor. It's ironic because I was in Miami, he was in Memphis, we met in Vegas. Long story, another show. But the beauty of it is that we came together in Christ and our first child was born. His name is Isaiah. And as a geek, being so totally left brain and not really having a childhood I felt that I can replicate, I asked questions like we do, right? And ended up taking a class in early childhood education while working full-time. And during that time, my second child, Elijah, was born. The beauty of that is I was so excited for this new path and what it was teaching me as far as being a mom that I lived in the admissions office. I lived in the scholarship office. And I was able to graduate with 0 debt, with probably a 4.3 grade point average. I was very active in Phi Theta Kappa and Golden Key. So I got a call. I got a call from Harvard, and the opportunity for me to start a doctorate program in education was presented, and it was fully paid for, so it got my attention. And so as I went through the process of getting my letters of recommendation, and just about 2 to 3 months before the actual move, something happened. we were home, and the entire right side of my body went numb. It actually felt like fire rushing through my veins. And so it obviously constituted an emergency, and we went to the local hospital. And of course they said to me, once they took the test and kind of ruled out MS and some other diseases, they said to me, Yvette, don't freak out. So of course I freaked out. And the neurosurgeon on staff had taken a brain scan and found something called Arnold-Chiari malformation. Very few people know what that is, Pamela, but what it is that your brain basically was born too long at birth. So here I am, a very active female adult with children and all the things I probably shouldn't have done in life, and finding out as an adult that I have this condition that was passed on to me from my mother, who had just 2 years previously passed away from an undiagnosed death. So when I heard about this Chiari malformation, of course we spoke with my husband about it, but just to give you a visual, what happened was that my brain literally fell into my spinal column, and it herniated the passage through which the fluid in your brain is supposed to pass and nourish different parts of your body. So it was pretty traumatic.
Well, now let me ask you this, as you're describing this. Now tell me, because with your case, was it not something that, how did it just come about? Was it not something, because it sounds like it was at birth, and something that developed. Is it just because of over time, or normally what are some of the other cases? Are other people really even living a wonderful life like you were living and being as successful as they were through their life, or was it normally something that hit people much earlier, and for some reason, the grace of God, it didn't happen to you until later on in life?
Those are amazing questions. Questions I asked, actually, immediately after my diagnosis. So with what you're saying, you're absolutely correct in every sense of the examples you've given, because no two Chiari malformations are the same. It can remain dormant. It can be treated medicinally if you're not having any physical effects. I was told, though, that this beautiful wheelchair that I'm in should have been mine at birth. So the fact that I was able to live a full life is kind of an anomaly. It is. And the fact that my brain literally kind of dropped into this open area that it was too close to anyway. So it really depends on kind of the contact. So it was pretty ironic that it happened at this point. Maybe it was because of my physical activity. Again, with childbirth, there's a lot of swelling, so they really can't determine exactly how it happened, but that it did, and that I was really fortunate to have lived a full life to some degree, right? And only now be finding out about it.
Okay, so then you went to the hospital, so you had those symptoms, you went to the hospital, they diagnosed you. Now, where were you at that time? Were the things kind of feeling a little bit back to normal, or did it just start going downhill for you?
The latter.
Okay.
In retrospect, I can remember some of the conditions and triggers because I knew what they were. I didn't know what I didn't know until the diagnosis. So immediately after my diagnosis, much like you brilliantly mentioned, it did go downhill quickly. I didn't really have much of a window to make a decision as to whether or not I was going to have brain surgery. And just the words brain surgery really got us nervous. But when we heard the example of what would happen if we didn't, then we had to think very strongly. We were told, obviously, that my spine would degenerate over time. It would crumble like paper. And it is a degenerative condition. So over time, I have not gotten better. I've necessarily gotten worse. But at the time, they also said that much like a dam, that this pressure in my head would explode to the point that my skull would be affected. So it would definitely cause some problems. So they asked me to do a decompression surgery. So it's a brain decompression where they do just that. They decompress that area of your head, and it's pretty much like road construction. If you live in Atlanta or any of the big cities, you get it. They had to go in and literally burrow a hole in the back of my head, in my skull, and cover it with a bovine patch so that you have some elasticity, and take pieces of my spine out. So they were literally just making room, adding a new lane. And that allowed the brain fluid to now pass more easily without the pressure of kind of expanding the vessels, and hence causing my pain, which was earlier diagnosed as a migraine.
So now, Very interesting. Thank you for sharing this and being so candid.
Sure.
Everyone, I want you to already know that this is what you're going to experience on Disability Life TV. You're going to get the information, the stories of many people in many conditions. But as you can tell, Miss Yvette, it is not stopping her. So now you had the brain surgery.
Yes.
And so now, did they have to do anything actually to your brain itself? Did they have to either remove any parts, do any actual surgery on your brain, or was it mostly just your skull and your spine?
It was mostly bone.
Okay.
So it was a hard surgery. There
Okay.
were no soft tissue involved.
Okay.
But obviously, with surgery, there's always risk.
Right.
So I have the scar. They call
Okay.
lots of people who have Chiari zipper heads because they sometimes have to go in more than once,
Okay.
and the scar is usually pretty long.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not usually a spinal cord affliction, but there are other conditions. For example, you may more likely have heard of spina bifida, which is a brother or a sister to Chiari malformation. It is a 1 in a million type condition, but there are other conditions and diseases that are closely tied to it, one being spina bifida. So, and spina bifida is more just a split spine at birth. So it does have a similar effect, but in order to correct it, they did only have to burrow that hole and pull out pieces of spine, leaving kind of an opening and causing the spinal cord complications that I had.
Okay.
So unfortunately, I walked in and never walked out.
Wow, I tell you, there's something. But now, so you had this fantastic job at IBM. You had this great opportunity to go into a doctorate program. So one would think at first hearing this that, okay, you had a little bit of a setback. You know, you had to, it was a major setback, but as far as what you went through.
Yes.
But once you were out
Yes.
and in recovery, were you able to go back to your job and then go to the doctorate program?
Here's my thing. I felt fine. It's a chair. It has wheels. I'll continue to do what I do best with maybe some modifications. But after having a neurological examination, I was told that I lost something
Okay.
called executive function. If you're not familiar with executive function, because I wasn't, it's really all the cognition, everything that happens on your left brain, your mathematical computation, your thinking, your science,
You're an
your
engineer.
engineering. So I literally didn't just lose the ability to
Wow.
walk and my mobility. I actually lost my tool. I lost my trade. I lost what I'd spent the last 10 years growing and gaining and climbing the corporate ladder at this major top 10 organization.
Wow, wow. So now how did that, because you have the physical effects, how did it affect you mentally or emotionally?
It's a really good question because very few people think of the cognition when they look at me. They look at me and say, well, Yvette's in a wheelchair, she has great shoes, and she's happy. But I never get the opportunity to talk about the invisible disabilities, and some of them are emotional. But mostly because I had lost executive function, I had something called time deference, where it doesn't matter what time I wake up or go to sleep, I just can't measure time the way that I should.
Okay.
I had balance problems,
Okay.
and there were a lot of residual effects that you can't see that I still deal with. And the pain that I deal with even today, 3 years later, is pretty excruciating pain. So on a scale of 1 to 10, my pain scale stays at about a 7. So there's a lot of physical pain in addition to what you see. So it was really difficult because my career meant everything to me. It's what I thought I was. But because I'm also a child of God, I found out so much more. In fact, for the first time, Pamela, I opened a gift that I truly believe in retrospect had always been with me at birth. I just didn't realize it. In fact, what I recognized prior to my injury is that I was using 80% of my skill, my talent, what I learned, and what I was taught in school, and only 20% of my gifts. And so this situational leadership that I was forced into made me now switch the dial, whereby I was using 80% of my gift, this present that Christ gave me at birth, that was still shiny and new, that I opened only because I had to, was 80% of my gift, something that no wheelchair, no injury, no surgery can truly take away. It took years to develop, and I'm obviously speaking in retrospect, but I realize now that yes, obviously your gifts are great, but your talents are yours.
Right. Yeah. And I'll tell you, I hope everyone that you're picking up something here, because what we're talking about when you think about the skills, all of our learning.
Yes.
One thing I want to ask you, and if you may have picked up on that as well, because you had all the learning, because, you know, you were bright and brilliant and, you know, going to a doctor program. But now switching from that and, like you said, relying on all of that knowledge and education, that left brain side of it, then for who we see today, the bright and vibrant Yvette Pegues. Now, was that your personality before?
Well, I will say when I started at IBM that the marketing department was very interested in meeting me, because not only could I get into the data centers where all the big major computers were and fix it hands-on and speak to all of the answers in technology. I wrote red books. I was, you know, involved in patent teams, but I also did C-level presentations. So the CEO, CIO, CTO, I could get in front of a PowerPoint and be just as effective. I didn't realize at the time that that was kind of a gift, but I think the impression of most people in technology is that we're behind the scenes, right? We're internal. We don't say much. We're not very friendly. So I do think to some level that was there, but I don't know that it was as pronounced as it is today.
Right. So in a way, because you no longer were able to tap into as much that side of it, the learning side and kind of left brain side, that even heightened more the other side, but really gave you an opportunity to see what else is there. Who am I?
Yes.
What else is about me? So, you know, for those, and, you know, you're definitely a testament to others that are going through things that, because I know with what you went through, you thought you had faith before, right?
Yes.
But now you really know, you know, what faith is about more. So often, you know, we can say we have faith when we don't have any challenges. But when you have those challenges, that's really when you truly learn, you know, what your faith really is and what your strength is. Talk a little bit about that side of your life and your experience.
Oh, I'd be more than happy to. I realize in retrospect, and again, even today, it continues to grow, as I do so much more ministry. And I love on people so much more sitting down than I ever did standing up. And when I speak to people who are of little faith or do feel like this tragedy is the end and not the beginning, I tell them God asked me to sit down so he can stand up for me. And I am very comfortable sitting and allowing him to be that strength and that pillar and the cross that I go to, because I don't know that I did that as much. I did lean heavily on my strength as a engineer, you know, as an educator and all the things that were tangible. But I do know now that my faith and everything that I know about Christ has become real. And I'm just grateful to have a life where I can actually see that. Because whether or not we believe it, it's real, but how many chances do we get to experience it? And as crazy as it sounds to people, I say to myself, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to come to you with nothing else, no agenda, but, you know, my pure heart and pain. And there was a lot of pain, and there continues to be pain. So my knight in shining armor, which is my husband, who has held us together throughout all of this, has truly helped me to use my faith as my medicine. Am I on medication? Obviously, I'm on medication because I have to be. But for the most part, like the 80-20, 80% of my therapy is through Christ, not medication or anything else outside of the Holy Spirit.
I love that. And I'll tell you, because we want everyone to also realize this show isn't just for people with disabilities, people that have gone through something physical or that have physical challenges. This is for everybody. So even, and not only because you may have family members that you work with, because Yvette's going to be talking to people that have different, and we don't even call them disabilities, right?
Well, it depends. Some people call them different abilities. You know, some people call them differently abled. For the most part, I was very clear when I had the opportunity to title this show to call it Disability Life. So much like you're saying, think about a disability as anything that keeps you from achieving your greatest good. Yes, mine is, it's on paper, it's diagnosed, but think of anything that'll set you back in how you live your life and how you take what you have left and not focus on what was possibly lost. Like in my case, my left brain, I literally had some type of ceremonial release of that. I had to mourn the loss of my left brain and recognize that I can move on with the rest of my body, myself, my experiences, and we can talk a little bit about that as well.
Absolutely, everyone. We just love it. We have so much to talk about, and like we said, this is why we're doing a show, and this is why you can already tell why we wanted Yvette to come on and join us with the BizLynks TV Network family, because of just the wonderful information and content that she has. I mean, we really could just watch the show and let Yvette talk the whole time, but she's going to be bringing on some great guests and just share a lot of things, not even just in the studio, but out and about as well. So we're excited about some of the things that are going to come. So we're going to take a break right now, because we do want to make sure that we always take an opportunity to thank our sponsors, the sponsors for Disability Life TV. And then when we come back, we want to talk about your journey to becoming Miss Wheelchair USA. Yes, so definitely. We'll be right back.
What happens when soldiers come home? Brene Foundation offers hero support to ensure that our heroes abroad can continue to be heroes at home. We link veterans with organizations who are dedicated to guiding the transition from military hero to civilian hero. If you want to find out how you can support our troops at home, please contact the Brene Foundation or visit brene.com.
Does your son need a more challenging, focused, and encouraging educational environment? Renaissance Christian Academy is an affordable private school for boys located in McDonough, Georgia, with certified teachers that are uniquely equipped to help your son master learning. You're welcome to schedule a tour of our facilities by calling 770-305-9881 or by visiting our website at rcaboysacademy.org. Renaissance Christian Academy, developing young men to be great leaders through Christ-centered learning.
Hi everyone, welcome back. I am Pamela Alexander, the executive producer of BizLynks TV Network, and I am on set today because we were talking about the exciting show that is now here on BizLynks TV Network, Disability Life TV, with our beautiful host, Ms. Yvette Pegues.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely, absolutely. We do want to make sure that we thank all the sponsors, and for those of you that are interested in sponsoring, please make sure that you reach out to Yvette so that we can make sure that we get you and tell you all the great things and great opportunities you have as a sponsor of Disability Life TV on BizLynks TV Network. Now, before the break, we were talking with Yvette. We were talking about her story, her beautiful story, and transition as well, and her experience. And now we want to get to, because we have been sitting here, and I know you all have been just looking and at awe, the beautiful crowns, the beautiful bling that she has. Tell everyone how Miss Wheelchair USA came about for you.
Thank you for asking, because there's definitely a pink elephant in the room, right? Mm-hmm. Who's the lady in the wheelchair wearing the crown? I sometimes get approached when I'm out at an event. Is it your birthday? And that really touches me. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I say yes. Mm-hmm. Why not have more than one birthday? Right. But it's definitely an amazing conversation starter. Mm-hmm. And the way that this started was after my disability. I actually started a social media campaign because I felt if I'm going to change the image of disability, I need to create an image. Mm-hmm. And I also got into the schools and started working with children who had disabilities at the high school level because of something called EQ, emotional quotient, that I'll talk about on one of the later shows. Mm-hmm. What happened as a result of working in the community is that I received an opportunity to try out for Miss Wheelchair USA. Miss Wheelchair USA is one of only 2 pageants for women with disabilities. Okay. Now, if you're familiar with pageants, there's literally at least 4,000 Miss pageants to date, but only 2 for women with disabilities. And the one that I was approached by was specifically about the inner beauty of women with disabilities. And I wasn't really interested. Again, I started out the show by telling you I was kind of a tomboy, didn't wear much pink or bling. But when they told me that this would extend my reach and allow me to not just help children with disabilities on my block, in my community or zip code, that if I were to win the state title, I would have an entire state to be able to speak to on the Miss Wheelchair USA platform. So again, my business acumen kind of kicked in, and I said, okay, so I can reach more people, let's try this out. So I was fortunate enough to win Miss Wheelchair North Georgia, which was really exciting, except that maybe 2 or 3 months later, I got a call and was told that I had qualified for the national competition. This is where other women with disabilities, likely using a wheelchair, come to the same place at the same time throughout an entire week of vetting with interviews from individuals that are in the community working with disabilities. We're talking executives, hospitals, business owners, and just people who would look through our resume, because the local competition is on paper, right? It's paper submitted. But the national competition is in Cuyahoga Falls. Think about that, because it took me about a year or two to get it. But it's in Ohio, very near Akron. And can I tell you, Pamela, it was an amazing experience walking or rolling into the room and seeing all these women with disabilities with fabulous shoes, faces, and personalities. Really became more of a family than a competition. So I competed against other states, women who also had service platforms that we'll talk about hopefully at some point. And I became the first woman of color and the first Georgian to wear the national crown.
Congratulations.
Thank you
and
so
that
much.
is huge. Yes, we need a clap track going on right now. I mean, no, that really is huge. And like you said, so the local is just on paper, but now you have a national. You have to show up. Now, is it all the similar categories that you have to go through, like you see at other pageants as well? Did you have to go through, talent competition, question competition? Tell us about it.
I'd love to, because in the Miss Wheelchair USA organization and in our pageant, the talent is your community service.
Okay.
And so I love to meet children today who see the crown and say, I want your crown. And I offer to them the very same thing that I tell my children every day: when you help people, you win. And that whether you're wearing a crown on your head or not, you're still royal. And I got the opportunity through an entire week to actually do community service in the city surrounding Cuyahoga Falls, to promote and do radio and a lot of things to bring a lot of people into the studio for the actual televised national competition. So the beauty of it is, yes, we did have the gowns, we did have kind of a hot topic type quiz, if you will, on stage. So a question was pulled from a basket and you had to answer it. So you did have to learn to talk on your feet more quickly than you would otherwise consider, which is sometimes a challenge, but it was great experience. So it was a pretty amazing. There was obviously a theme. This year's theme was denim and diamonds, which worked really well for me. And we did get to do a lot of things together. We had pajama parties with the other ladies, so we bonded quite a bit over that 1 week period during the competition stage.
And I know even with Miss Wheelchair, and just from following you on social media, like you mentioned, it's a family, and it really even goes beyond the year that you are kind of the official Miss Wheelchair USA, but because it's a family, because you had some challenges when you were on vacation or you were traveling, and they really kind of jumped in and helped you and looked after you just this year.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I was traveling for an event as Miss Wheelchair USA, and our pageant coach, Miss Laurie Lockhart, and the executive director of Miss Wheelchair USA, had put me into a hotel, and I was doing just fine. And a few hours later, she got a call from my husband, who I had texted just before going into emergency. And Laurie stayed with me for 2 whole days. She fed me. She took care of me. You did things that I won't say on camera, but all in the love and the likeness of the family that had been created. And during my reign, I started something called Pageant to Purpose. And I became a pageant coach for the other women who would come in with the anticipation of winning the national crown, but not losing, but gaining the experience and walking away with the same service platform that they came in. So the purpose coaching and Pageant to Purpose was somewhat of a kind of a finishing school, if you will. So I had Miss America 2014 at the time come in and talk to us about pageants in general. I had people from media come in. So it was really an opportunity where we got together once a month, and I helped them to accelerate their platforms and to get into the media, because I wanted them to feel and understand that they weren't losers, but they won, and we're still part of a family to reach out and help and support each other.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that story. And I want everyone to also get that, this could only have happened to you. They always say God doesn't give us more than what we can handle. Had it been me, I wouldn't have dealt with it the same way, I'm sure. I would have had my own way of dealing with it. We all go through different things, different challenges, disabilities, have our own disabilities, but, He gives us exactly what He intends to give us, because you have now created this platform, created this brand, that could only be you and only be your brand. And I want to talk about that because through Miss Wheelchair USA, you have grown and developed and really brought that brand out.
Yes.
You've become a fantastic author and have
Yes.
started Legacy of Literature Project. Tell everyone about that part of it.
Absolutely. Well, I was asked to select a service platform. And all that really is, for those listening who are not in the pageant world, is that something you'll never get tired of talking about, something you believe in your heart. And ironically, the very thing that would or should have embarrassed me as a child was the invisible disability of illiteracy. And so that's how I started the Legacy of Literature Project. What happened right after my surgery really had a lot to do with that as well, because my son came home and his teacher wanted to know if she can share something that she had heard in the classroom, and he wanted to know if his mommy was going to die. Because he'd never seen me horizontal for more than a couple hours at the time, and here we are going into weeks. So my then 7-year-old was completely horrified that his mother just laid still and was not who he knew her to be in the short years that he'd been my son. But what happened was my right brain, my teacher brain, my second degree in education kicked in, and I talked him through everything. We took temperatures, we did dream boards, and they ironically had macaroni and cheese on the dream board because they were like, "Mommy, we just want you to make macaroni and cheese." But that all began a thinking process because they were being bullied. Mommy had neck braces, hard body equipment, and wheelchairs, and their children didn't really understand in different school settings and play settings. So what my children wanted to do as a result of that is share their experience, and at the age of 5 and 7, they became published authors. So their book is called My Mommy Had Brain Surgery and I'm Okay. So between the fact that my children go from being bullied to published authors, and I get to now take what should be a shameful experience outside of the physical disability, but the disability of illiteracy, and take that and create a platform.
Wow. Now, and I don't want to put a pin in that because I want to make sure that you all got that. We were talking about a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old. So they were affected as well in how they were able to go through that process and then come out of it published authors. Sharing their experience, because going through a disability isn't just about that person, right?
It's not.
It's the the spouse, it's the children, and making sure that gets addressed. And I know Yvette is going to discuss more things like that and more experiences with you on this show. And this is another great reason that this show exists, so people can see that it just doesn't stop at the disability experience. It's not about just assimilating into the world and figuring out how you can do the same thing that others are doing, but how you make it your own. And you all really did that and took that challenge up. And I want to make sure you tell everyone again the title of your boys' book and how they can get both their book as well as how they can get your book.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things you mentioned again so brilliantly is not being afraid of putting footprints in the sand where no one else has been before. It's okay if it's a uncharted territory, and it's even okay if your foot never touched the ground. So with that being said, and with that being said not just on this show but in our household, my boys became published authors, and it was such a situation that there were no children's book that were nonfiction about the brain. So we created a whole new category, and they know more about the brain than I do, and sometimes even most adults. They're very intrigued with it. And the name of their book again is My Mommy Had Brain Surgery and I'm Okay. And you can get it on Amazon. It was self-published through Create Space. I'll have links available as well. But I'm very proud of their book. I'm very proud of how they're using their book and how they're growing in their talent, because they're very effective speakers, and I'm called upon on many occasions to book them for speaking engagements. So they're very effective in explaining a book by kids for kids, which didn't exist before. And it's not just about brain injury, it's about disability, living in a home as a child. And we were fortunate enough that the Shepherd Center featured our book saying the very same thing, because with a brain injury, depending on where it happens in your head, it can change your personality. You can come home different than you left. And how do the smallest of these, how do the children who don't necessarily have a voice respond? And that's what the book helps. And much like my boys' book, The Art of Adaptability, which we'll talk about again, is also available on Amazon and Create Space. But I did want to be able to launch it right here on BizLynks. So it is now available for purchase.
We love it. See, that's the wonderful things that happen here at BizLynks TV Network. We're just blessed with this show and want to make sure that you all are blessed as well. So thank you so much for reserving that for the launch of your show and sharing your book as well.
It's an honor. It's an honor.
Now, I tell you, everyone, there's a lot that you're going to have in store. We want to make sure that you tell everyone to tune in to Disability Life TV on BizLynks TV Network, BizLynks.tv. You will not be disappointed. And then we're going to have wonderful segments. You're going to have a lot of different segments. So it's not going to just be Yvette sitting here talking with someone every single episode, because you can tell this woman is active and she's going to make sure that that comes across on the TV show as well. Give everyone kind of a sneak peek into some of the segments they can expect on the show.
If you'll ask, I will tell. And because she so beautifully did that, I will let you know there's going to be 4 really strong show segments that we're going to be broadcasting. The first is going to be much like we're doing, right? Interview style. What's your ID, which stands for Invisible Disability. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and other people's challenges and how they can be invisible or visible. We're also going to have something called our Sponsor Spotlight. So if you're out there and you'd love to be part of this once-in-a-lifetime event, actually. I don't know that this is already being done, but it is going to be representative of the 25th year of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which we are celebrating this year. So 25 years ago, this year, our first President Bush signed off on the Americans with Disabilities Act, which makes a lot of things that we enjoy today as people with disabilities effective. The other thing we're going to do is Queen on the Scene, which I love because I'm totally into adaptable sports, and I really thought that after my disability that I couldn't live forward, that life did end at the disability, but I've learned more. So between me and my boys, who are also very competitive, we snow ski. I'm going to learn to scuba dive. I definitely do sled hockey. So whatever I can get my hands on, I am totally into. So I'd love to be able to show that more than 4 times a year, because you know the Paralympics are shown like every 4 years, but people are doing this every single day, so we want you to meet these people. And this I'm really excited about. I don't think I shared this with you yet. It's called Viewer's Choice. That's when you, each and every one of you, you call in, you write in, you apply to be a guest on the show, and you can come here and talk about your situation or your relativity in this disability life. And it doesn't mean that you have to be disabled. You can have a family member, a friend, or I call it an armchair quarterback, because if you want to be part of change, let's just change it together.
I love it. So I hope you all are going to love it as well. I just know you're going to love it. I don't even have to hope. I know you're going to love it as well. And I love that. And you said, now did you say live forward? Is that the term? The phrase you use?
Live forward.
I love that.
I started doing that once I started my nonprofit called Your Invisible Disability, because I realized that, guess what? You can live forward. And I also recognized that disability was not reserved for the aged or the babies. There's a big gap in between where there's injury, illness, or an accident. Because I experienced my disability well into my adulthood. So disability life and living forward is really hand in hand in bringing out the best in our lives, irregardless and in spite of our disabilities, whether they're on paper, in our heads, or in our hearts.
Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. Everyone, again, we know you're going to enjoy this show. I'm going to get myself from in front of the camera and get back behind the camera as executive producer here at BizLynks TV Network. So, Yvette, I want you to close out the show by giving everyone your contact information, how they can get in touch with you, and then I also want you to share that little extra special piece that we talked about, your D-Life Diamond.
D-Life Diamonds, absolutely. So you can reach me and the show at disabilitylife.tv. Now, I don't think it matters, but my D is lowercase and my A is uppercase. But when you go in and try to contact us, it's disabilitylife.tv. And you can also contact us on Twitter, which is disabilityLifeTV. And I'd love to talk about the diamond.
Yes.
So D-Life is just a really short way of saying disability life. And the diamond is really the jewel that you take from the show. So the jewel I'd like to leave you with today, and hopefully is something that we can continue throughout the show, is live forward. And look at the things in your life that are holding you back. I never thought in my career that being an engineer and possibly a PhD was a holdback. But was it really? Was it a barrier? Was it something in my life that I had come to the end of? so that a new beginning and a start can happen, look at your life and look at the things that hold you back from being the best you possible. Live your best, authentic life and find the diamonds and jewels in your life. Don't keep them in the haystack. Pull them out. Wear them on your head. Allow them to be your crown of joy. They don't have to be a physical crown, but we know just by looking into your eyes that you are royalty. And thank you for joining us today. And don't forget your D-Life diamond and live through it until our next show.